to talk about ways you can jumpstart your marketing in 2019. And these are really things that you can use anytime in order to try to accelerate things and get yourself ready for the upcoming year. So we're going to talk about first, what are those things that you should be reviewing today? What are those things that you should make sure you're looking at so that you're starting the year off in a good place? We're going to talk a little bit about how do you reflect back on what happened in this past year and use the things that you learned to move forward in your marketing. And then I'm going to show you some ideas you can use to jumpstart things. So let's get started with things you should be reviewing now. So a lot of times people kind of just get into this mode where you just keep moving and you don't really think to go back and reread what's on your website or reread on your Facebook profile. An example would be, I was looking at my Facebook profile a month ago and it said, I'm, a working mom with 2 kids. Well, I had a third kid about 4 years ago. It's a perfect example of how you just keep moving forward and you don't go back and double check things, and you really need to do that regularly. So we recommend you start with your website. Look at all the photos. Do you have pictures on there that are not staff who are still current? Do you have things that are outdated that need to be removed and replaced? Or if you're using stock imagery, does it resonate with your audience? You want to double check all your contact and your service information. Think about maybe there's been road construction and you have directions to your practice on your website, but those aren't accurate anymore because the roads have changed. Or maybe you have office hours now and you're going later in the day and you haven't updated that on your website. So double check all that information. You also want to look at your patient testimonials. Do you have any testimonials from patients who are no longer a patient of yours? And the reason you want to watch for that is if they're a patient somewhere else, they may have given them a testimonial. And if somebody is comparing multiple dentist websites and sees a testimonial from the same person on multiple sites, it's just not going to be looking very credible. You also want to make sure that your site is mobile friendly or responsive. This is critical. I know anybody who's gone through a Prosites webinar has heard this over and over again, but we still know that there are people who don't have mobile websites. This is critical because Google is using that to prioritize the search results that are coming out. If you don't have a mobile site, you're going to get penalized and you're not going to be showing up in those number 1 slots. You want to review online directories. These are going to be the ones where you've got your information showing, such as Google My Business, but also things where there might be reviews, like Yelp. You want to make sure that your information is consistent throughout. You want to make sure your profile has information about where you are, your phone numbers, what do you do, how can they reach you. And then if you do have those online directories with reviews, reply back. Even if it's just once a year, you go back and you take a look at them. We highly encourage you to do it regularly, not once a year. But if you've never done it before, make sure you go in and try to review, thank people for leaving a comment or addressing ones that are a little bit on the negative side. You also want to double check all your social media profiles. If you don't have a profile on all of the big networks, you should go out and create it. Even if it's just going to sit there, you at least want to have that ownership of those profiles. You want to optimize and make sure that you have a complete description of services. So maybe you have it, but you never told people what it is you offer. So you want to make sure that they understand that. And then you also want to make sure you're a little bit social. So if there's comments or questions you haven't responded to, go out there and respond to them. Just make sure that you're engaging. Even if you're not doing it on a regular basis, New Year is a great time to just get on top of it and make it look like you're actually active in your current practice. And then the last thing that you should review before you start working on your new marketing plans is making sure you have access to everything. This happens a lot. Somebody works for your practice, they were the ones who helped to set up your profiles, and then they left. And either you don't have access because they were the ones who set it up, or you do have access, but they still do too. And that's the case. You don't want somebody who might be working for a competitor to be seeing, who's looking at your page, who likes your page, who has that level of access. So you want to make sure that you have access and everybody else who no longer should does not. You also want to make sure you have tracking codes set up. Google Analytics and Google Search Consoles are the basics that, we highly recommend everybody has because that's going to give you the information to help you make good judgment calls. So let's talk a little bit about how do you measure what happened in this past year and make decisions about it. So first thing we recommend is that you list out all of the efforts you did in the past year. Think about things and not just things that have a cost, but there's some things that you do that don't have a cost. Like, for example, maybe Yelp. Maybe you're not actually advertising, but you do have somebody monitoring it and putting a little bit of time into replying to things. So think about all those different things you did and how much money you spent if there was a spend associated with it. Then you want to try to measure what happened. So think about how you can measure what the result was. So the metric might be you have Google Analytics set up on your website so you can see how many visits you got from a certain effort. And you can see how many people completed a form. Or maybe you have a tracking phone number set up. So you have a unique line that you only use for newspaper ads. So you can go back and you can look and say, how many phone calls did I get on that phone line? Or maybe you just manually had somebody saying, hey, how did you hear about this? And then having them write it down within your practice management system or a separate spreadsheet where you can track your results there. So next, we're going to add on how many prospects. Prospects might be phone calls, how many form completions, how many people reached out to you from those efforts, how many of those turned into actual patients, and then what's the average revenue? And this number doesn't have to be exact. It could just be, on average, each patient gives us $500 per year. Pick a number that works and makes sense for what you're tracking. So based on that, we're starting to see some trends. What's working, what's not working. So we want to look at next is what's the return on your investment? Is this actually paying off for you? Is it not? So to calculate the return on your investment, you want to look at the dollars generated by those new patients minus what you spent on it, and then divide that by the amount spent. And that's going to give you a percentage that you can look at. Let's see how it plays out. So I added an ROI column to the same spreadsheet we've been looking at. And within this, you can start to see what worked well, what did not work well. For example, the newspaper ads. You can see we had one great one, we had one that failed. Based on this, you start to make some assumptions about what should you do moving forward. So if I were looking at this information, I would say newspaper ads, a little bit iffy. If I do them, I need to refine what I do. I need to look at that March ad and say that was a really great one. January was a failure. I'm not rerunning that. And do the same with all the different efforts. For example, a weekly coupon insert. That didn't work at all for me. I couldn't track any results back to it. That's out for this upcoming year. But when I look at the Google advertising that I did, some of it worked, some of it didn't work. So I need to kind of adjust what it is that I'm doing to make sense of it. So here's some ideas that you can use this year to try to really accelerate things in your practice. So I just talked to you about how important tracking is. If you don't have it going, you want to implement that. And here's some ways to implement it. So tracking phone number. You can get a second phone line or a second line that points in that can give you a separate report that says this is how many calls you got in, this is the phone numbers that dialed in. It's a great way to understand how different efforts work. You may have one phone number for newspaper ads, one phone number for television commercials, if you do those, or radio commercials. You have another phone number for your website. It's a great way to understand without a whole lot of extra effort. You can also train your office staff. How did you hear about us? They can write it in on the patient forms. They can ask on phone calls. You could even put a special offer code. Like if you had a coupon insert, mention offer special 5 in order to get this price. That special 5, when somebody mentions it on the phone, gets put into your practice management system or a Google Doc, something like that, so that you can track and see how well different efforts are paying off. If you use a marketing vendor or provider, they should be able to give you some reports that show the progress of the work that they're doing for you. Use Google Analytics. Check out your website. It's going to show you where the traffic's coming from, what happens to it. If you use an SEO provider, same thing. They should be able to give you reports telling you how well it's working, what changes you're starting to see. And then another thing you can do is use a special landing page for different efforts so that you can see how many people hit that landing page, and then of that, how many actually will complete a form. And that's especially good for when you're doing things that are digital, where, maybe you have an ad on a third-party site, somebody sees the ad, they click, they come over to that very unique landing page. Or if you're using an offline effort, you could even do it there where you're actually giving them a special code like mypractice.com/whitening. That's going to take them right to this special page. That way you can see how many people actually come and visit. So here's kind of an idea of some different ways that you can do this. And then once you're doing that, you want to make sure you start to track the information. So I'm back to that spreadsheet I showed you before. Instead of just doing it once a year, though, do it monthly. Update it regularly so you can stop efforts as you see them not working. Or things that are just marginal, you can make some changes to it. There's no reason to be spending, 6 months worth of budget on ads that aren't working for you. You can replace that money and use it somewhere else, or you can just stop and you can save that money. Next, you want to build on the success. So we've identified the things that work really well. We can do more with that. Anything that works well for you, you want to get every little bit of success out of it that you can. So I'm going to give you 2 examples here. The first one is newspaper ads. So if you've got newspaper ads that worked really well, you can repeat it more often. If it's something you just did, 1 insertion a week or 1 insertion a month, do it more often. You could look for other newspapers in the area. A lot of cases, there's duplicate overlapping papers in the same area. You could use the same offer that worked really well in other places. You can put it on Google Ads. You can use Facebook. You can mimic that ad on your website. You can reuse that same copy that was really successful. Same thing with Google Ads. If you were using ads and you were bidding on a certain keyword or had a certain ad copy that seemed to be successful, are there other similar keywords that you can bid on? Or could you expand the geography? Instead of just doing it in the media area, do you think you would have success if you went out another 5 miles maybe? You can test different ads to see if you can improve it. This is what we call A/B testing, where you have the control version, the ad you've been using, and then you kind of tweak it a little bit. You maybe change what the call to action is. Click here versus call now, or you talk about it a little bit differently to see if you can improve those results. Or with Google Ads, you can increase your budget. Maybe you're not being shown every single time. You can actually increase your budget and make sure that does happen. So the next thing we recommend you do to jumpstart your marketing this year is making sure if you have not secured your website yet with an HTTPS certificate or an SSL certificate, you get that done. This is getting to be really important because when the site is secure, it's encrypted. It means that third parties can't see the information in there. And when you're looking at a secure website, right now the Google Chrome browser actually will show that it's secure, and it will show if it's not secure. But Google is also prioritizing those secure websites. So if you remember back a few years, we started talking about how important it was to have mobile websites. Well, pretty soon after that, mobile became the priority for Google, and it was used more for search algorithms and prioritizing who shows up. Well, we're starting to see that with HTTPS also. If you think about it, if Google knows 2 sites have almost the same information, one's secure, one's not secure, it's going to want to give people that security, and it's going to present that site first before the unsecure site. So it's important to start to make sure that you're making these changes. You want to avoid the alerts and things like that. Another thing that you can do to help kickstart your marketing is some competitive research, or using your competitors' disadvantage to help attack and help to make yourself stand out more. So a great way to do this is using some online review sites to do the competitive research. Read about what people like, most importantly, what they don't like. You can also look at their website, their social media pages. Think about what can you do better than they do? What can you present? How can you explain certain procedures? Can you give better pictures? Can you deliver better service? You want to use that into your own marketing efforts. So here's an example. And I know the copy is really hard to read on the left-hand side, but I'll summarize these reviews really quick. So the first one is somebody whose son has ADHD, had a really difficult time with the dentist. They kicked him out mid-procedure, so they were walking around with half a tooth. The second one, they were told the price was $135, and then they added another $98 fee afterwards. So the person, it looks a little bit shady because there wasn't transparency. And then in the third one, somebody had been seeing this provider for a long time. Their insurance always covered it, and then their insurance was not covering it on the last cleaning. And the office never told them, so they got the bill for the whole thing. All of these are things that people, legitimate complaints, I mean, they're all very recent, or mostly recent ones, and you can turn this around and use it to your advantage. So an example, when you're promoting your own practice, you can say, hey, the guy next door, he doesn't do well with kids, especially if they have ADHD. Well, you can use in your own copy, our practice works with parents to address their child's unique needs. You can talk about the fact that you're there in your understanding and you know that kids need a little bit more than an adult. You can also talk about how you offer relaxing environments. You have transparent pricing. You're going to verify insurance contributions prior to treatment so that people aren't surprised. So you find out what people don't like about your competitors and you use it and you spin it in a way that you're going to be able to present in your own marketing. And to really make this point come through, another thing you can do is actually use testimonials from your own patients that are going to help really reinforce this and help to build that trust. So one of the other things that you can do to really jump things up in this next year is improve your online reputation. An online reputation is one of those things that everybody hates and loves. You hate reading those bad reviews, but you love to hear those great reviews. And it's really important to make sure you understand how critical this is to the success of your practice and also how you can actually help impact it, right? So 70% of prospective patients want to read an online review before selecting a dentist. This is great because this is a great way to build credibility, build trust. But what people sometimes forget is that existing patients see those reviews too. If they go up to look for the phone number for the office, maybe. Here's an example on this page, and you don't have to worry about all the copy, but I want you to see is all of those orange stars that are screaming out at you. I typed in exactly the name of the office to get this listing, and what I'm seeing is all of these stars. Well, if I was an existing patient and I saw that they only had 1.5 stars, I would click through and I would start to question my own choice in this dentist if everybody else is having a really tough time with them. It actually could impact your existing patients. It's not only about bringing in new ones. So you have to remember that. And you want to try to make sure you impact your online reputation, which you very much can. So you want to claim your profiles on the different directories. Go out there, verify your listings, make sure you get access. If you need help, we actually have a white paper that will help you identify how to go out there and claim them. Just make a note in the post survey that you're looking for that, and we'll send that out to you. You also want to make sure you respond to reviews. So if it's positive or negative, respond to it. It helps to diffuse a negative review. If you say, hey, I'm really sorry you had that experience. We want to do better. Can I talk to you about this? Give me a call. Make sure when you're responding to reviews, you're very, very sensitive to the fact that you can't talk about anything that's covered by HIPAA. You want to make sure that the messages are clear, they're not judgmental, they're very supportive, showing that you really do care about what people think. And then you want to ask patients to leave positive reviews. And I'll give you a couple of other ideas on how to do that. But the really important reason you want to ask that is because enough positive reviews will push down the bad reviews. And it'll neutralize that grade. So like in school, 5 A's plus 1 D still equals an A-. So that one bad grade kind of gets diminished when you have lots of good ones. So that's why it's important to make sure you get more positive reviews. So how can you do that? Ask happy patients if they will review you. If you've got somebody in the chair who's really, this is great, it went a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, say, hey, would you mind reviewing us online? Google, Facebook, Yelp, wherever you're most comfortable. You can showcase and link to the review sites from your own website. So show off those good reviews you have. You can put up a sign in your office that says, hey, go and review us online. You can add a link to the review sites in your email signature. Maybe you guys have an automated system where you send out messages to people after the fact saying, hey, thank you for your visit. Here's a link where you can go and you can review us online. And you can also utilize reputation marketing services. There's services that will help you with collecting reviews and encouraging people to leave them on the right review sites. So another thing that's really important that you can do is implement a stronger search marketing effort. So a couple of different ways to approach this. First, you have to understand, are you where you need to be? So take a look at the keywords that you want to appear for. You know, it might just be the dentist in this town, dentist around this address kind of thing. It could be other things though, like teeth whitening or sleep apnea, implant, broken tooth, emergency dentist. There's lots of different things. So understand where you're showing today. When you look at the links or look at this screenshot here, you'll see at the very top are the paid ads. Those are the ones where people are paying for Google ads to show up and make sure that they prioritize themselves. Then you see the business listings, and then you see the organic listings. And organic listings have definitely moved down the page as time has gone on. So it's really important that if you're not showing organically on that first page, you make some efforts to try to move yourself there. There's two different ways to approach it. You have search engine optimization, which is kind of the process of trying to make your website show up organically by making sure that your website's going to answer those questions or the intent of the searches that people are looking for. And then the other is pay-per-click. This is Google ads or Bing ads where you're showing up at the very top of the page. And that's a way to get yourself showing when you're not showing up organically. Now you can combine those two efforts. So depending on what your goal is and what you're trying to do, you can use SEO or PPC or SEO and PPC. The advantage of pay-per-click is going to be immediately. You can go out, you can set up a campaign within hours, within days. You can have yourself showing on that first page right at the top for whichever keywords you want to be there for. SEO is a longer term strategy. It can take 3 to 6 months to see those results pan out. But once you do show up there, it's very powerful and it doesn't cost anything. Whereas with the pay-per-click, you have to pay to show. So depending on what your goals are, it might be a combination of the two, might be one or the other. If you are going to start up an SEO campaign and try to get yourself there organically, one of the things that we recommend is build a page on your website dedicated to that service. So I always tend to go to tooth whitening. If you wanted to do with whitening services, you create a page that's dedicated to the service. You want to make sure you have internal links to that page. So for example, maybe your homepage has a description that says, hey, I'm Dr. Smith, I'm in this area, I provide these kind of services to patients of all ages. Well, when you say, I provide teeth whitening services, you want to link that to that page about teeth whitening. That builds some internal links that starts to point to people, what does that page contain? You can write a blog post about the service and then use search phrases, like how is somebody actually going to type it into the search engine? That's how you want to try to make sure your page answers the intent of the queries. And then link from your social media accounts back there. If there's other places that you have that you can link in, you want to try to build that visibility for your pages. Now, say you want to show up right away. You want to be there immediately. You're willing to pay to be there. Your strategy is slightly different. You're going to go sign up for Google ads or Bing ads. Still recommend most people go with the Google ads just because that is the most predominant search engine still. You want to build a page on your website dedicated to the service, or if you're promoting your practice in general, again, a dedicated page helps to ensure that you have very clear tracking. You want to sign up for your account or engage in somebody who can help you to do that. Think about the keywords, the phrases you want to show up for. You have to put that into your account. Also define what your geography is, whether it's a city, whether it's a search radius around an area, that type of thing. You have to create the ads. You have to set a budget. And it's not just your daily or your monthly budget, it's also how much are you willing to pay per click. So if somebody actually sees your ad and clicks on it, Are you willing to pay $2 every time somebody clicks? Are you willing to pay $15 every time somebody clicks? And the amount is different for everybody. So depending on what it is that you're trying to promote and where you're trying to promote it, the amount of competition you have is really what's going to determine how much you have to pay per click. So, if I were to talk to somebody in Connecticut and then talk to somebody in California, they're both going to be paying very different amounts. So another strategy you can use is building more backlinks. Now, backlinks are ways that search engines know that you're a credible website because other people are pointing back to your website. And that's a way for Google to say, hey, yeah, this is credible. Other people think this is an important website, so I should think it's an important website. So some ways you can build backlinks: make sure you've got your website in the online directories. Is there somebody you can blog for in the industry? Maybe you can write an article that goes on an association page or a publication that's local to your area. Answer questions, join your chamber of commerce, fill out your social media profile with your website information in there. Provide testimonials or case studies for a service or a system you use. Those kind of things, a lot of cases when you do testimonials or case studies, they'll actually link back to your website, which is a nice arrangement for you because it gives you some extra boost from what you're doing. The things that you need to watch for, though, are what we call black hat techniques. You don't ever want to buy a link. You don't want to go to a directory where you have to pay, $15 to be listed. Google knows about that. Google knows that that's a shady practice and will actually penalize you. And sites could be kind of banned. They could actually not show up anymore if Google thinks you're engaged in too many black hat techniques. So, building a content calendar. Another thing you can do to make things easier for yourself going into 2019 is to figure out what it is that you want to talk about and when you want to talk about it. So by building out a calendar, you can think about what content are you putting on social media? What are you sending out to people? How are you going to make your advertising work well with your organic work that you're doing, your blog posts and your social media posts and things like that? Ideas might be quizzes, polls, videos, tips. We do have some white papers that we can recommend that you can download to learn a little bit more. Content calendar does not have to be very difficult, though. Here's kind of a basic overview of a simple spreadsheet that just talks about, the week, and it could be months. Maybe your content only goes out once a month. What's your theme? If you're going to be doing posts, you can have multiple social posts listed, blog articles. And the important thing is, think about how things might work together. So if you're promoting new patients, you're trying to bring in new patients at some point, how can you have your social efforts work with your website efforts and your advertising efforts so that you have consistent messaging going out? We do have some good do's and don'ts, recommendations on how to address this. I'm not going to read through all of them, but like I said, we will send this deck out to everybody so you can go through it. But you want to make sure that what you're doing is not controversial. It's not going to incite anger. It's things that are helpful, that are building the relationship, that are establishing your credibility and your trust. And that's really where you want to focus. We recommend everybody review your patient communications. Is there anything that you're not doing that you should do? Take a look at your no-show rate. Are you getting a lot of people not showing up for their appointments? If so, you might need to be doing a little bit more to try to encourage that. It's not very expensive to increase your communications, and the payoffs are huge. So it's important to look at that. If you're not using text messaging, it's a newer technology, but it's available, and patients love getting text messages. Are you sending postcards? Sounds pretty old school, but people hang on to postcards. They put them on the refrigerator. It helps to remind them of things. So we still find it's a very effective way to communicate with patients. And then are you just doing regular things to try to keep in touch with them? So we've got some ideas on how you can use all of the different channels, whether it's confirming your appointments, whether you're trying to connect with people to reactivate people you haven't seen in a long time, or maybe you're just trying to talk to them about special occasions. In that case, you can leave automated voicemails, you can send out emails, direct mail. There's lots of different ways to communicate. Some of the things you might want to consider if you're not doing them, which will help to really kind of boost your profitability earlier in the year, reach out to patients you haven't seen in the last 12 months. Remind them, hey, we've got availability. Give us a call to schedule. Identify patients have treatment plans who have not yet been scheduled. Maybe they left the office without scheduling it. Reach out to them and see if you can get them on the calendar. You can send out quarterly newsletters to help build relationships. You can even send out holiday greetings to remind patients of your office hours or what to do for a dental emergency after hours. Or you can think about specials that you can send out. For example, graduation and wedding season. Maybe you have a special on whitening services that you want to share with people. So lots of things you can do to start to build that communication and get people into the office to improve your profitability. So I promise we're almost to the end here. Consider updating your look. If you haven't updated your look in a while, it's something you might want to consider. So think about your brand. Your brand's your practice personality, the way you talk, your colors, your images, your fonts, the impression you leave. Does everything you do reflect your brand? And if not, maybe you want to consider an update. So a couple little quick things you can do. You can change your social media profile images. Maybe you guys set it up on Facebook 10 years ago and you haven't touched it since. Update your image to make it look a little bit more similar to the current brand that you guys are projecting. You can consider implementing a new website design. I've got a couple of, our more recent designs up here. You can put a new sign on the office. Put it out front. A lot of times, changing out a sign, people will notice you. Your sign's been there for so long, they're kind of blind to it. But all of a sudden, you put up a new sign, new coloring, maybe you have an image on it that you never had before that really reinforces the brand that you're a dentist. All of a sudden, people notice you. Longer term, you can think about, is there time for a new logo? Should I rewrite my copy to make it more reflective of who I am now? Do I need to get some custom photography so that the website is showing my office, my building, the things that we've put a lot of money and time into? I want to make sure everybody knows. Okay. If you're not leveraging social media, that is something you should really consider. We highly recommend social media because people are on it all the time, hours and hours and hours. I think my most recent study that I read was it was over 2 hours of time that people spend on social media on average, which shocked me, but it's there. It's true. We need to take advantage of it. You can use it to help increase your leads, referrals, website traffic, new patients. It keeps you top of mind. Social media is really taking the referrals, the word of mouth referrals that everybody loves, and trying to kind of make it a little bit more systematic, if that's a way that helps you kind of understand the importance of it. Especially when you get into things like Facebook, where you've got reviews and stars and things like that you want to leverage, and you want to use, and you want to encourage people to be leaving. So, 4 things you want to make sure you have on your Facebook page or other social media platforms: a branded cover photo, a professional photo of the profile of your doctor, all your practice information, and some engaging posts and content. So, lastly, you should consider testing new strategies if you haven't. You want to do it in a way that's controlled. You don't want to test out 20 different things at once that you're not going to know what's actually making an impact. You want to do it in a controlled way. So I've talked about a lot of things over the course of this, but here's a couple of things that we would recommend. At the very least, everybody should have a good, solid website, and you're probably already leveraging referrals the best you can. The next important things that we suggest everybody really focus in on are directories, online review sites, and social media. So if you're not engaging in any of those 3 things, we highly encourage you to try to go out there and at least add that, 1 or 2 of those to your tactics that you use. The next things that we start to see more effective are search engine advertising, Google AdWords, search engine optimization, which is really going to start to get you more traffic when people are looking for a dentist which is really the most effective. You want to be there when somebody is actually looking. And then beyond that, look to build your backlinks, build up your signage. Consider YouTube. A lot of dentists are having luck with YouTube videos, and you kind of see everything else here. So I know I went over a lot of material. If anybody has any questions, you can send those in to us using the question window, which is in the GoToWebinar toolbar that you have. And like I mentioned, you'll also get this information all sent out to you via email, so you can always reply back at that point too. I'm going to sit here and wait to see if we have any questions come through, but meanwhile, just to let you guys know, Prosites is here. We offer website design, pay-per-click, search engine optimization, automated recalls and reminders, social media, and marketing return on investment tracking. So if you need any help, you're more than welcome to reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk to you. We also have lots of great resources on our website, white papers, infographics, previous webinars that have been recorded, a blog full of information. So feel free to take advantage of some of that. And I want to thank you all. Like I said, I'll just kind of sit here for a minute and see if we have any questions come through.